All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host. I'm your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the X Zone Broadcast Network, DMZ Broadcast Network, RM, what is it now, Craig? RMIB network. Wow, that's a new one. They just came on board today, so I'm sorry about your call signs there. I promise I'll get it better. I really do. And of course, radio stations around the world and satellite program providers. If you'd like to send an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Stephen Dillard. Carroll, we've had the pleasure of having this young gentleman on before. And for those of you who may not have heard Stephen the last time, he's been a student of tarot for 5 years. He's read tarot since almost the beginning of his tutelage. He's read for family, friends, neighbors, strangers. He's met along the way. And he's with us tonight, and we're going to be talking to Stephen about many topics. Stephen's belief that we all have the answers inside of us for all of life's questions. It just sometimes we need outside help to guide us to those answers that are basically within ourselves. And that's what he does, and that's why he does tarot. Joining me now is Stephen Dillard. Carroll, and Stephen, welcome back to the show. How have you been since you and I had the last pleasure of talking together?
Well, I have been just fantastic, Rob. Thank you so much for having me back on the show. I remember our first conversation very fondly, and when I got the call from you, I did not hesitate to come back on with you and share with your energy this evening. So thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it.
The pleasure is all ours, Stephen. The pleasure is all ours. Tell me, Stephen, there's a lot of information out there about what a psychic is and what a psychic is not. And I was wondering if you could describe for us, in your opinion, what a psychic truly is.
Sure. I remember the last time we spoke, and I had just gotten off of a radio show within the last couple of days that it was readings, one after another after another. It was like speed reading, and at the end of it, I was simply exhausted. And I remember thinking to myself, and I shared this with you, that I am just not a magic 8-ball for people to shake and get an answer out of. Now, that's just me. A lot of, and in fact, tomorrow I'll be at a fair and festival where I will be doing that. Probably in quick succession as well. But a psychic to me is someone that, well, we're all psychic. It's just that the only thing that differentiates me from the regular Joe Schmo on the street is that I have cultivated and worked out that muscle. We're all born with it. We're all born psychics. It's just that some people do it for a living, which is what I do.
Wow. So tomorrow you're going to a psychic event, and I used to go to those all the time with the show, and there'd be table after table after table after table of psychics, tarot card readers, astrologers. And I also used to think to myself, well, wait a minute, if these people are all psychic, they must be telling the person who goes to them the same thing. And then I'd watch these people go from psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic. And I could always tell when they heard what they wanted to hear, because that would be the last psychic they went to.
Well, you know, and it's interesting that you worded it that way. You know, you worded it, they heard what they wanted to hear. And, you know, sometimes I have the ethical responsibility to tell the truth. Sometimes the truth is pleasant and it's wonderful and it's life-affirming.
Right.
Sometimes the truth is a little bit harder, you know, and sometimes people want to hear the rainbows and unicorns and, you know, puffy white cloud kind of answers for their lives. And I hope to be able to do that for people, but if I can't, I can't.
All right, Stephen, stand by, Stephen. Stephen, we've got to take our first commercial break. Please stand by. Stephen, Dillard, Carroll, and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Stephen Dillard Carroll is my very special guest this hour. www.traveltarot.com. Why don't you tell us about the journey that led you to becoming a psychic, Stephen?
Well, that's actually an interesting story. It happened quite by accident, if you believe in such things as accidents. I was sitting around with my best friend, and almost 6 years now, and she said, how would you like to read my cards? And I said, well, I don't know how to do that. And she said, well, just look at the pictures and tell me what they say to you. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll do that. And so she pulled out her cards, and she read me first. And then I read her, and then she was like, yeah, wow, you're really good at this. And I really didn't think too much about it until a couple of months later when I was at my friendly neighborhood Barnes & Noble, and I was in the New Age section, and I just happened to come across some tarot cards, and I bought my first deck. I bought a few books concerning it, and that led me on the road that I'm on today.
What was it like the first time you actually sat down and read the cards for your friend? Did you have a natural feeling for what you were doing?
Well, that's interesting. I basically just looked at the pictures and said, okay, this is what I think the pictures might be saying about your life. I mean, because it was my best friend, it was a real low stress kind of a deal. You know, there was no expectations connected to it. But I didn't really feel anything. It was just an adventure to begin with. There wasn't the skies did not open, angels did not sing a heavenly chorus the first time. But certainly after that, when I started doing it on my own, I started to hear more because I was working that muscle more.
What muscle? You've used the word. I've used that. I use that muscle more. And which muscle are you using?
Well, it's not really a muscle, but I mean, it's sort of like when I say that we're all born psychic, it's true. You know, if we ever had an imaginary friend when you were growing up, that's psychic. If you, as an adult, have a hunch, or you women's intuition, or anything like that.
Oh, I see.
It's actually psychic ability coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the way that I do it is I carry on conversations with Spirit. Just like I'm carrying on a conversation with you,
Mm-hmm.
Spirit will talk to me, and the more that I've been doing tarot readings,
Right.
the more open, I guess, my mind has been to this, and so Spirit talks to me all the time when I'm in that particular zone, and so it's almost like, well, it really is. It's like a conversation between me and Spirit, just like I'm speaking to you tonight.
Now, when you hear the information or the message that comes from Spirit, is it in your third eye? Is it in your ear? Is it an impression that you have to translate?
It is a combination of me hearing it,
Mm-hmm.
like almost as if it's over the phone, like we are tonight. I hear it in my left ear, and as a matter of fact, my phone is on my left side tonight. So it's very much like that, and it's also an impression as well. When Spirit really wants to get my attention, it says, "You must tell so-and-so this."
See.
When it's just a general impression, I look at the cards and I get an impression off the cards. But it's generally a combination of both when I'm working with people.
Now, I know that there are different types of psychic readers. They're clairaudience, clairsentient, and so on. What is your specific forte?
Well, just like I was saying, I'm more clairaudient. I hear.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I didn't have a quote unquote imaginary friend, but I would talk to Spirit all the time. I didn't realize anything was wrong with it because no one said, "Oh, there's no one there," or "Oh, you're too
Mm-hmm.
old for that," or X, Y, and Z. You need to leave that alone because you're too old for that nowadays. I would just carry on conversations with people that other people couldn't see, and I couldn't see them either. I could just hear them. And so, if someone's talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
it's rude not to say something back.
Yeah.
So, I would do it that way. And so if I had to narrow down mine, it would be clairaudient with a strong dose of clairsentient as well.
Do you think that we have been deliberately dumbed down when it comes to our psychic abilities by society?
Yes. And I think as far as that goes, I think it's because people don't understand it. And when we don't understand things, we either investigate them or we're afraid of them. And too often, most of humanity has fallen on the "I'm afraid of it" side of the equation. And so that's why people say, "Oh, you're too old for an imaginary friend. Who are you talking to? There's no one there. You don't really see that person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And because we don't understand it. And so we're afraid of it. We think it's of the devil, whatever that may manifest to people. And so, there's a lot of fear that's surrounding it.
Stephen, tell me, do you think that a person's religious beliefs play a part in their ability to be psychic or not to be psychic?
I would say no. As I've said a few times now, we're all born with it. Regardless of our spiritual inclination or lack thereof, we're all born with it. I think that it helps certainly to have some kind of religious inclination of some sort.
Right.
But if you don't, a lot of people call it energy. I know of atheists who don't necessarily believe in a higher power, but they believe that energy is there and it never goes away. And so, and so you could even do it that way.
Right.
Spirituality always helps it, but it doesn't necessarily. You don't necessarily need it.
For people who have never gone to a psychic fair or have never had the opportunity of meeting a tarot reader, could you explain to our listeners who haven't what a tarot reader is and how you read tarot?
Well, the main thing about tarot is I always tell the people I'm going to give you the cards to shuffle, and you're basically putting the cards in the order that they should go, and I'm just interpreting it. And so it puts the impetus back on them to say, because they are the ones that are, stretching that psychic muscle of their own and putting the cards together on their own. And all I have to do is connect to that kind of energy. And after the cards are shuffled, I flip them over and I look at them and I interpret what they've put in order for me. And so it's really not a scary experience. It's actually, it can really be a life-affirming experience for people.
How many cards are there in an average tarot deck?
There are 78 or 72 or 78. I can't remember right now. Yeah.
And why are there so many different types of tarot cards?
Well, tarot started out as a game, and so much like any other trump kind of a game, like spades or hearts or something like that. And so there were only 21 or 22 cards to begin with. And then as time went along, they added in the suit decks, diamonds, spades, clubs, and oh gosh, I forget the other one.
Hearts.
And mixing them all in together, that's what created the 78 cards. It didn't start out that way, but the cards that we work with today have all four suits, ace through king. So that's how that came about.
So I guess you, in a crunch, you could actually just use a regular deck of playing cards to do a reading.
You actually could. And in fact, I know somebody who strictly uses a playing deck of cards, and it's incredible the insight that he gets just from a playing deck.
Wow. Stand by, Stephen. You and I have to take a commercial break with the news. www.travelingtarot.com is Stephen's website. And Stephen and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell, and whatever you do, do not go away. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone. Stephen Dillard Carroll is my special guest this hour. www.travelingtarot.com. So let me ask you this: if tarot was initially a form of a card game like spades or hearts, When and why did it actually turn into a divination tool?
Well, that's an interesting question. The when, I'm not 100% sure about. I have been researching that and looking into it. But because there isn't a specific date as to when it switched over. And in fact, there are some places in Europe where there are still only 22 cards in the deck, and they're still using it as a game rather than a source of divination. They call it Tarochi. But for the general world at large, I would say around the 18th century is when it started making that turn. And I think it was because people were adding more cards to the deck. And they were, with the suits, there are, different imagery that goes along with each suit. And instead of it being an ace of diamonds, it would be it would show an image of some sort that had nothing to do with diamonds at all, but it had a spiritual connotation to them. There is some conjecture that it goes back as far as Egyptian times. That has not cut the mustard as far as scientific evidence, but there still is anecdotal evidence. Take it for what that is. That this particular form of divination goes as far back as that, but I would say around the 18th century is when it finally made that turn into something that was more of a divination tool for the world at large. But like I said, there are still some places in the world where the first 22 cards are just used as a trump kind of game.
Wow. What kind of questions do people ask you when they sit down in front of you and go to you for a reading?
The number one question I get is, am I going to die?
Well, that's an easy answer. Yes.
There you go.
All right, so much for my career as a reader.
So I'll see you at the next psychic fair.
There you go.
And honestly,
yeah.
I wish I could make that up. I wish I could have made that silliness up, but it really is. That's the number one question that I get is, am I going to die? And I always say, I'm more concerned with how you actually live, rather than how you're going to die or if you're going to die, because we all are going to die. The second most popular question, and it just shows the sign of the times that we are in right now, is when will I find gainful employment?
When you put out your job resume and get off your lazy butt. There you go.
Well, I think that it probably goes a little bit deeper than that.
Oh, okay. What do I know? I'm a radio host. What do I know? I'm a radio talk show host. I'm not a tarot card reader. I'd be a lousy psychic.
I just think that we just haven't. People say that we're over the recession, but tell that to the people that come and see me.
Yeah.
I honestly don't. By what they tell me, if it's the second most popular question, and I see a lot of people, if it's the second most popular question that people have, then clearly there still are a lot of people out there that are hurting.
But how much of the information that you give them is actually based on just am I going? Am I going to find love? Are you looking for love? Am I going to find a job? Are you looking for a job? You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and yes, I'm with you on that. Actually, you know, I can joke around with you, but I'm actually with you on that. And I do bring up to people because, again, I'm more of, okay, how are we making your life better by you sitting down and getting this reading? You know, I can read all day long and, you know, fart out answers like I'm a magic 8-ball, but, you know, how am I making your life better?
Right.
You know, and so I always encourage people, you know, am I going to find love? Well, possibly, but this is probably what you need to do to find love. Am I going to get a job? You know, fill out some resume, or send out your resume, fill out a couple of applications, you know. So, yes, common sense and, you know, just being a decent human being that's not out there to take people's money.
Right.
Yes, I can honestly say that does filter in through the messages that I give people.
You know, there are, unfortunately, the less scrupulous people that do tarot card readings and psychic readings and astrology who actually want to form a dependency with the people that they're reading for. And how do you, as what I believe to be a reputable person, how do you stop these people from actually creating that dependency with you?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing that I do is before I lay down the first card and start reading for people, I tell people, look, I'm like the ghost of Christmas future, only a lot less scary. And what that means is Ebenezer Scrooge asked the ghost if these things were meant or were set in stone, or if they were mere shadows. The ghost didn't answer him, but I'm here to answer you and say these are mere shadows. The best that I or any other psychic can do for you is say, if you continue on this same path, this is pretty much what you can expect the outcome to be. If you change paths at any time, you immediately change the cards and you change your own destiny. I make sure to be 100% clear to people that if you don't like what I'm saying, if you think that I'm full of baloney, say, man, that was the worst X amount of dollars I ever spent. I wish I could go punch that guy in the face. You know what? Go out and change it. You know, take control of your own life. And so that's where I come from. Before I even lay down the first card, I'm like, look, it's all on you. If you like what I say, do it. If not, change it.
Do you find that you have more men or more women coming to you seeking your assistance? It's
more women. I would say it's probably 60-40 women. Women just seem to be, for better or worse, more in tune with the possibility that there might be something else out there. I respect you a lot because you're a guy and, you know, you do this all the time. You know, you're saying there's more out there, but you don't find a lot of guys that do this kind of work, and consequently, you don't find a lot of guys that come to see people that do this kind of work on a regular basis. So I would say probably around 60-40 is my clientele.
Wow.
Yeah.
How serious do you find that you need to be with the people that go to you for readings? Do you throw humor into the readings, or are you just a straight off-the-cuff guy that says and tells the people what you see?
Well, I like to I like to mix things up. I'm much more of a how are you doing? What's going on with your life? While we're reading, while we're going through the reading, especially when we have an entire hour to kill with each other, I want to be able to. I find that if I crack a joke at the very beginning, it puts people at ease immediately. And so I'm usually my one-on-one sessions that aren't at fairs and, when I'm doing back-to-back are 1 hour sessions. And so I immediately try to put the person at ease and make them feel comfortable. And the way that I do that is through comedy. And I know this hasn't been a very yuck kind of a conversation this evening, but it's not par for the course for me. I'm usually the one trying to find the humor in everything.
When you're reading a person and you see something horrific, like there's a disaster that's going to be happening according to what you're seeing, how do you relay that information to them?
Well, that's where my Pollyanna side comes out. I could see the most horrible news. I could see, like, for instance, my number one question, am I going to die? And I look at the cards and it says, yes, within 5 minutes, you're going to, be dead. I would say to that person, you have 5 minutes to do whatever the hell you want to do. Do it. Whatever you have dreamed of doing, whatever you have fantasized about doing, go out and do it. So even if all joking aside, if I saw something that was not the best news in the world, I would spin that to say, you have this amount of time to do whatever you want to do. Go out and live life, 110%. And really, why shouldn't we all live that way? Because we never know when, our number is up. So why not all of us live that way, regardless of what I have to say? Go out there and live life to the fullest,
Exactly. And the old saying, you're here for a good time, you're not here for a long time.
There it is right there.
Yeah. Exactly. Does that happen to you a lot, where you actually see some rather disturbing news in the cards or receive a psychic impression?
I will say this. Because I do have repeat customers. I do have people that come to me multiple times. And usually it's for the same issue. And when that happens, that to me is the saddest thing of all. I've never seen anything, I've never had a psychic impression that you're going to get hit by a bus or, your plane is going to go down in flames or anything like that. But, when I see a person at a psychic fair and they say, am I going to find love? And, I give them really strong suggestions as to how they could go out there and find love. And then a couple of months later, I see them at another psychic fair, and the first question they ask me is, am I going to find love? It's like they're stuck in a loop that they haven't figured out how to break free of. And that, to me, is more horrific. It's a more horrific way of living life, stuck in a loop, than saying you're going to go down in flames. You know what I'm saying?
Sure do, yeah. Which, which is, in my opinion, the right thing to do.
Right. And of course, those kinds of people are my toughest clients because, you can't be rude to them. You can't say, didn't I just see you 2 months ago and I gave you, this X, A, B, and C to do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that to them, or else they get pissed and want their money back and storm off, and, then your name is mud. But what I do for those people is I say, okay, I remember you from the last time I was here. What have you done? Let's talk about it. What things have you set into motion for yourself so that you could find love, so that you could find that job, so that you could do A, B, and C. And then if they've done things, great. We have a jumping off point from here. Okay, what worked, what didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. And then we take a look at the cards and say, okay, this is what you need to do.
Excellent. That sounds very ethical.
Yeah.
That sounds very ethical. Stephen, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our final break. Exonation, Stephen Dillard Carroll is our very special guest this hour. Great having you back with us here in the X-Zone, Stephen. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, if you'd like to send us an email, my email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And for more information on Stephen, if you'd like to contact him for a one-on-one reading, www.travelingtarot.com. That's www.travelingtarot.com. Don't go away. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. Stephen Dillard Carroll is our special guest. If you'd like to contact Stephen for a one-on-one private consultation, www.travelingtarot.com. That's www.travelingtarot.com. Stephen, it's been great having you on the show again. What is your message for the X-Zone Nation around the world tonight?
My message, and I think that we've kind of been talking about it all night long tonight, our hour long, is take control of your own life. Mm-hmm. I, as a psychic, am here to, guide you. I'm here to advise you. I'm here to give you signposts that you can look out for. But when the chips are down, it is really up to you to take control of your own life and control of your own destiny. If you follow what I say, because I try to be an ethical person, mm-hmm. Then hopefully everything will work out well for you. But at the end of the day, I want to empower you to be the best person that you can be and live the best life you possibly can live.
Because ultimately, once the person leaves from where you're sitting and giving the reading, if you suggest they turn right, they can always go out that door and turn left.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. It's all up to them, and regardless of which way they turn, mm-hmm. I wish them the best. I always give them a really good blessing on the way out, and I wish them the best. And I would love if my job were a one-and-done kind of a job. Some people come back, some people don't. Hopefully mm-hmm. the people that don't feel the need to come back take my advice to heart and live the best life possible. And I continue to work with those that choose to come back and trying to get them on the path to empowerment as well.
How often do you suggest a person visit or revisit their psychic or their tarot card reader?
I always say as when you feel the need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, far be it from me to say I need to see you once a week. You know, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a tarot reader. I'm a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel the need to come and see me every day, I might suggest you go out, and I might suggest once a week. And if you say, well, I want to see you once a week, I might suggest once every 2 weeks. And not that I'm putting anyone off, but that I want to make sure that they don't create a dependency upon me to tell them what to do. I am here to guide and suggest and offer recommendations. It is on you to make the ultimate decision on your own.
As always, Stephen, when you're with us, time goes by so fast, my young friend. Thank you very much for spending this hour with us here in the X Zone and for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone, buddy.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate our time together, and I look forward to the next time as well.
Take care, buddy. Exonation, Stephen Dillard Carroll has been our guest this hour, www.travelingtarot.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away now.